Mount Kailash in Tibet has a lot of mystery associated with it. One gets fascinated knowing that no one has been able to scale it to date, though at 6,638 meters, it is way shorter than Mount Everest, 8,848 meters. It is considered a holy sacred mountain by 4 religions. The Hindus consider it the abode of Lord Shiva, the destroyer and transformer of the worlds, and his consort, goddess Parvati. It is believed that Lord Shiva sits in meditation on Mount Kailash. The Buddhists, especially the Tibetan Buddhists, considered it Mount Meru, the center of the universe, signifying a sacred mandala and an abode of deities. Legends cite that the Tibetan saint Milarepa successfully dueled for the control of the mountain with the born shaman Naro Bonchong, establishing Buddhism as the primary religion in Tibet. The Jains believe that Mount Kailash is the site where their first Tirthankara Adinath attained liberation or nirvana. They refer to it as Mount Ashtapada. The Bons regard it as the spiritual soul mountain of Tibet, the abode of 360 deities and the center of their ancient civilization. The circumambulation of Mount Kailash is a pilgrimage undertaken by many a devotee to gain spiritual enlightenment, spiritual renewal, and cleanse one's sins. Usually referred to as a Kora by the Tibetan pilgrims, the Indian pilgrims refer to it by the Sanskrit word Parikrama. There is an outer Kora that spans a stretch of 52 kilometers, which generally is a 3-day trek and is a physically challenging trek for most pilgrims. There is also an inner Kora referred to as the Nandi Kora near the south face of Mount Kailash, which is even more rigorous and demands extraordinary fitness and is a 2-day trek spanning 26 to 32 kilometers over extremely treacherous terrain. Generally, only people who have completed 13 outer Koras embark on the inner Kora. The Hindus and Buddhists embark on a clockwise Kora of the Mount Kailash, while the Jains and the Bon pilgrims do an anti-clockwise Kora. I have long been fascinated with Mount Kailash, and last year decided that the Kora is something I have to attempt. At the least, I wanted to see the Mount Kailash and Lake Mansarovar and Lake Rakshastal, which have so many myths and legends associated with them. Many explorers between the 17th to the early 20th centuries had attempted to map the area and had so many intriguing stories to narrate, adding to the mystery associated with the mountain. Finally, on the May 5th of 2025, I started the outer Kora as a part of a small group tour. I'm neither the fittest person nor have age on my side. The only advantage I had is that I do not suffer from altitude sickness. And I knew that it was a very difficult endeavor, but I was determined that I will attempt it. Most pilgrims start the Kora from a place called Yamadwar. To complete a full circle, our guide suggested that we start at our hotel at Darchen, since our trek would end there. So unlike most who do 14 kilometers from Yamadwar to Dirapok on the first day, we did 21 kilometers. I struggled on the inclines from the start, and I found it frustrating that we climb and then go down and then again climb. Being a first time trekker, that annoyed me, but soon realized that it comes with the terrain. Fortunately, mostly it was gradual inclines on this first day of the trek. Another frustrating issue is that there are no signs in English. Most signs anywhere in Tibet are in Chinese. So at no point during the trek did I know how far I had walked and how much further I had to go. I did not use any apps on my phone to track the distance. I was just tracking the altitude. This meant that I did not want to pause to take a lot of pictures and lose time, since I wanted to ensure that I completed the first day's trek. So whatever pictures I took are taken hastily and not the best. We were told that we should walk at our own pace, and since the sunset is around 9:30 p.m., even the slowest of the walkers would reach our destination, which was the guest house at Dirapur. Our guide would be accompanying the slowest of us. After 2:30 p.m. till I reached Dirapur at 4:45 p.m., our guide was walking with me as I had become the slowest in the group. The weather was not bad. It was around 0 degrees when we started the trek at 7:15 a.m. in the morning, and it climbed up to 6 degrees during the day. We did not have any rain and the ground was clear. At times, there was a bit of wind, and in a few spots, a few speckles of snow. The river we were walking along was frozen mostly, and we could hear water trickling here and there. The scenery was picturesque even in areas where it was flat. At times, I felt I was all alone in the world with no one else visible. A lot of the Chinese trekkers were carrying oxygen bottles and using them frequently to manage altitude sickness. Most heart-wrenching was to watch the Tibetans who do the Kora. They fall on all their 4 limbs, stretch themselves flat, doing a full prostration, and then get up, take a couple of steps, and repeat the full prostration and go on. I'm not sure how long it takes them to do the Kora, but once we see that, we realize what we are doing trek-wise is nothing compared to what they are doing. To imagine their devotion and belief and comparing it with what had pushed me to attempt this trek, I felt juvenile. Along the way, we passed the west face of Mt Kailash. Prayer flags are tied in the areas from wherever Mt Kailash is visible. I saw some pilgrims walking in the opposite direction and did not initially understand. I was wondering whether they had given up and were returning. I later realized that they are the born pilgrims. This section of the Kora is navigable by 4-wheel drives and horses. They ferry the essentials and food to the guest houses and the small community in Dirapur, and also transfer trekkers and pilgrims who decide they cannot continue back to Darchan. Some trekkers use the horses instead of walking for the first day of the trek as well. At the end of the day, I was relieved that I could at the least manage and complete the first day of the trek. With the cramps I had been suffering for more than a week, I had wondered how much further I could go. As I reached the guest house, the north face of Mt Kailash was clearly visible, majestic and glorious, an unforgettable, splendid sight. The high point of the day for me was that at the end of the day, before we made it to the guest house, my guide suggested that I remove my shoes and socks and immerse my feet in the water, which melts and flows down from Mt Kailash. It was freezing but refreshing, and I could sit there looking at Mt Kailash and contemplate on its mystery for a few minutes without being disturbed.